All right, three, two, one. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a special guest, a returning guest. Had her on many times talking about true crime subjects. Her name is Roberta Glass of the True Crime Report. And tonight we're going to discuss a recent documentary that was put out by Fox Nation or Fox News through their paywall site. And it's on the West Memphis 3. It's titled The Fuhrman Diaries. So this was an episode that just came out on the 24th of September, 2020. And both Roberta and I have had time to look into it and watch this pretty incredible 27 minutes of his so-called investigation into this. And so I think we're both pretty outraged, but I think we're going to talk about some of the interesting aspects of what he put forward. So, Roberta, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for agreeing to the interview on short notice, too. So you watched this documentary. I watched 27 minutes. And what kind of struck you about his whole presentation? Can you talk about any of that?
What's amazing is that he fits in so many of the West Memphis 3's PR talking points, even PR talking points that they had abandoned.
Good point. Yeah, so even things they don't even talk about anymore, he went right back to, didn't he?
He's talking about John Mark Byers and teeth impressions. He hasn't been given the memo that it's no longer John Mark Byers' teeth. It's all turtles now. It's turtles 24. That's 2020 now. Now they're back to turtles, Yeah. I mean, so many of these talking points are cyclical, cyclical or fatty with the West Memphis 3, right?
Right, and it leads you to believe, like, what actual real research did he did? What did he look at to come up, with his analysis of the cases, his conclusions? You kind of wonder, like, what trough is he eating out of to regurgitate back into his documentary? Whether he did any research at all, because when I was watching it, he's clearly reading off of something, and it just doesn't even look like he actually did any legwork himself. To me, at least, I got that impression.
Right, and there's all these shots of him signing a book, hand signing it. What was that about?
I don't know.
I was like, are you signing your own book on this? Are you signing John Douglas's book on this? What book are you autographing? About 5 close-ups of him, like, autographing this book with big cursive letters.
Yeah, that was weird. But, the interesting thing is that he started out with so many factual inaccuracies. Like, he discredited himself to somebody who actually knows the case right at the get-go, right out of the gates. Like, he says that Eccles was 16 at the time of the murders. When he was 18, he was an adult. Just called, he had time in an institution. That's how vague it was.
One time.
One time. Right. I had time in an institution instead of, there's 500 pages in the court record of his time in mental institutions. Right. And he says that, Miss Kelly didn't know Baldwin or Eccles at all. Like, they were different. And I think he even said that Miss Kelly was initially interviewed, which that was news to me. I didn't know that. Did you know that? That he was interviewed before his confession on, was it June 3rd, 1993?
I was not familiar with that. I'm familiar of when he was brought in and confessed. Right. That's the part that I knew about. But he repeats the 72 IQ for Miss Kelly as if it's fact, if it's not in question that he was malingering. And look, anybody who's heard Miss Kelly can clearly tell that his IQ is not 72.
Yeah, well, it's just the fact that the IQ got deflated. It gets down to 70 because that's the legal standard for inadmissibility. So it's just such a convenient number to have for the defense, right? Because then you can't count anything he said. And he also repeated the 12-hour interview, right? The 12-hour grueling confession.
Confession.
So he got that in too.
And no mention of any of the confessions he made post-conviction, which is the most damning, to me, the most damning fact that the West Memphis 3 supporters never have any answer for. Why Miss Kelly would confess so many times post-conviction when he's being coerced not to confess, when they're his own lawyers begging him, don't confess, it will mess up the appeal, and he's saying, I want something done about it. Yeah. No one has given me any reason why he's wanted to do that, why he would do that, why he would go against his best interest.
Yeah, nobody can, because you can't. It's recorded. It's against the advice of his attorney, right? So his attorney's just begging, no. And then the attorney, like Fogelman's there, so the prosecutors are there, even there in one of the interviews where his hand is on a Bible. So there's a tremendous amount of credence in these repeated confessions. He confessed to the cops when he was leaving after his sentencing. These are post-conviction confessions. So it's very important. I mean, and that's how you can see, and I think you can take a step back and look at the wide-angle view of anybody looking into the West Memphis 3 or any of these other criminal cases. There's such glaring omissions. It's just incredible.
Why do they have to omit so many facts? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
It's a great question.
Because they're taking things apart and then they're recreating a new picture of the case of their own making.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, and I think he has the same myth, like, oh, these guys are incompetent, corrupt, so like he's belittling the West Memphis Police Department and they're handling
it. They're not only incompetent. He also went to the Bob Ruff thing, in that they have to solve the case. They're under pressure to solve the case really fast. So they'll pick up anybody that they can, and they're going to sleep peacefully at night knowing that they sentenced 3 innocent men. Just as long as they can go up the ranks in the police department and get these guys.
They just need these 3 misunderstood black-clad wearing guys.
He says black-clad, and also he's the one thing I will say for Fuhrman, he's very honest about his hatred of the South. And he talks about Bible belts.
Right.
What is he? They're dumb hicks. That's what
he said. It was an extreme Baptist, Southern Baptist town, West Memphis. But then if you talk to Gary Meese about that, he's like, well, I don't know if that really played out in reality. It was kind of a lower income, a lot of African Americans. So I'm not sure if it was that much of Bible believing. Maybe there, I don't know.
Right. Meredith, who I've done episodes with this about, pointed out that there was a heavy metal concert just, an hour and a half away that was, packed. So they weren't really sticking out. That was popular music, all the music the West Memphis 3 liked. So people say,
everybody on Earth.
Of course, their supporters goes, that was an hour and a half away. And I was thinking, well, if you want a giant concert right in the trailer park, you're going to be waiting a long time for, whoever, Black Sabbath or Metallica to come to the West Memphis 3's trailer park and perform. So.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Fuhrman kept saying they found nothing, no evidence, and which is true. There wasn't a lot of physical evidence, but he ignored all of the first-person direct evidence that was in court of families seeing Eccles at the scene, of young girls hearing him say he killed 3 and he was going to kill 2 more at the softball park, all omitted. Nothing.
Well, that, and what I say when they bring up the no evidence, that must have been a short trial. 2 trials with no evidence. Imagine how quick. The prosecution said, we have no evidence, and the jury voted to convict. Wow.
Right. Yeah, he said that directly about the Miss Kelly trial, that they didn't have anything. They had nothing to convict him on.
I didn't really understand juries and how seriously they take their assignment, their vow, until I saw the jury in the Nexium case and the way they conducted themselves. And I would watch them early in the trial come in, and I thought, well, they're not getting it. These people aren't getting what's going on. But as it went on, you could see, they were really taking it all in very fairly until you could see when they made an opinion, because it looked like there was a bad smell every time Ranieri or his lawyer came up, but these juries aren't flippant about their role. And they really do a good job of weeding out people who are flippant, who want to go home, who can't stand it, who need to get back to their regular lives. This is a really serious thing and a very serious burden to have someone's life in your hands.
Right, and they always
Freedom.
gloss over that fact of 24 people unanimously came to these conclusions, right? Two different
And for Eccles, this was a death penalty. You know, he was given the death penalty. That is their life in the jury's hands. So, I mean, you can argue from jury to jury, but nobody's made any case that there was something wrong with any of these juries.
I think that there was supposedly some information that wasn't supposed to be in the Eccles Baldwin thing, but I think the appeals court said it wasn't.
There was so much other evidence that it wasn't. Right? Was that
something like that?
Yeah.
Oh man! So then he said, then he forgot. I mean, he said he came up with that crazy notion that the kids were abducted somewhere, murdered somewhere, brought somewhere, and then put in the water. And
whose theory is that?
It was some kind of weird theory that was on the internet that there was one that was they were put into some sewer. Do you remember that one?
I remember
there was the sewer theory, and then they were murdered there.
Ninja Turtle ones. They were playing. I don't even understand how that one works. They were playing in the sewers or something. I don't even understand how.
But here's the thing: he ignored the case record of the luminol that wasn't presented in evidence, but it's in the police file. Of all the pictures where there's just a ton of blood everywhere, all the bushes around that area, and they talk about the slicked off part of where the bodies were found that looked like somebody was trying to cover up evidence, and he didn't even mention that. So according to Fuhrman, the kids were abducted, so like something totally different than the Miss Kelly confessions, that they were abducted somewhere, murdered somewhere, and then brought to the park or brought to the Robin Hood Hills.
With no one seeing them.
Right. No one seeing them. I mean, it was almost kind of like a joke. Like I was just waiting for him to start mentioning Byers and Hobbs, but he just mentioned them both together. So
did he skip Mr. Bojangles? Is that the one?
He left out Bojangles. He left out the prehistoric beasts. So he's picking. He's definitely picking and choosing, or whoever does his research for him is picking and choosing stuff. But yeah,
how close is this to John Douglas's book?
That's a good question. I'd have to go back and remember that. I don't know what John Douglas's theory. I think he was definitely a Hobbs done it person, if I remember correctly. I got to go back and look. It's been a while, but that's a very good question.
Because it's clear he's watched Paradise Lost 1, 2, and 3.
Right,
and
so that's the big.
I think that's his research. It seems like,
yeah.
And maybe listen to some Bob Ruff on top of it. I mean, just nothing from the other side. Yeah. And I really wonder about all these sort of new things that are coming out now that are very supportive of the West Memphis 3. There was the oxygen, what is the sudden PR push?
I don't know.
What's it about? Is it just a money grab, or is this to start really cementing this myth in the American mind that it was losing hold and now they're really re-cementing it?
I don't know. I don't know why. I think that there's something very curious about this phenomenon where these people are picking up this case but missing and omitting stuff. I don't know why they've come to this conclusion when there's these mountains of evidence that have really Everests of evidence that they're ignoring. And I think it really comes back to sloppy and lazy journalism. I think Douglas and probably Fuhrman don't even do their own research. They probably have some intern who's like a young guy, not legally trained, and just says, "Oh, this is what I think," and then they just repeat it. Fuhrman, to me, doesn't even look like. He just looks like he's there just reading off of something. Did you get that impression?
He says this is his favorite episode. That's what he told Fox in the interview. Yeah. So I want to ask you about, about the satanic occult element and how he presents it.
Right. Well, he says on the outright, Eccles is involved in Wicca, right? But they never, and they actually, it's interesting because they do include a couple visuals that were in the court record, the drawing of the child sacrifice under the pentagram, right, in like some kind of Stonehenge thing, and then they also show the secret cipher language of Eccles, but they only talk about Wicca, and then they talk about Vicky Hutchison and her kid Aaron, which I really didn't focus on because it wasn't that salient to me. It was about her, but that's a way of kind of discrediting this whole notion that we know of Eccles as a member of the OTO. He's admitted recently. He's a member of Crowley's AA. He writes Crowley. He's producing tons of books. His body is basically a cult tapestry of symbols. So they leave a lot of that stuff out conveniently. Like right after he got out of jail, he just went right back at it. And all of his admissions that, I spent 20 years in jail practicing magic. Like that's what he was doing. And what also Eccles said is he never says facts and evidence got me out. Magic, magic, magic. So these are incredible admissions that these investigators conveniently leave out. And I think it's just bad journalism. And it's also a larger kind of intellectual bias that, these things are not happening. And if you believe that the occult is involved in things, you're a lunatic and a Bible thumper. So I think that's what's involved in a lot of these guys' impressions of these cases, whether it's Douglas or Fuhrman. Yeah.
Right, or Amanda Knox. That's another thing that they bring up. Oh, the prosecutor said this was a satanic. That was never presented in court, that this was a satanic killing, Amanda Knox. But the same thing. So it's almost like a shortcut for saying that the prosecution and that the police all jumped to conclusions.
Right.
And weren't thorough and were superstitious and wrong and imagining things that weren't there.
Yeah, it's interesting too because they make that assertion, but it took them almost a month to get arrests done, right? So like, we've got a target, but it's going to take me until June 3rd to actually get enough evidence and enough things to get a conviction. So it's a little inconsistent because if they really rushed to judgment, they would have arrested somebody within 48 hours or something like that, don't you think?
Right, and with Jesse Misskelley, all the circumstances where people were coming into the police and saying, hey, look, I was wrestling with him. And then they had to look into it and find out they were wrong. Sorry, wrong day. They weren't saying, go away, we got the right guy, we're not going to look into it with Jesse Misskelley. They were looking into it when people were coming in. So either you're rushing and you don't care whether you got the right guy or not, and and he's even hinting that they know they have the wrong guy. They just need to close the case.
Right. Yeah, no, it's incredible. There's so many factors. He says that Hobbs was unaccounted for from 10:30 to 1:30, which is basically false based upon other people who were there, buyers where he's with Hobbs, where they're going out searching with them. Then they come back. It's pretty incredible that he could get away with that too.
Oh, Hobbs. But now he has a double suspect. I like how he works in both of them.
Yeah,
he works in John Mark Byers and Hobbs were two people he'd look into. Strangely, the two people that Jason Baldwin and Damien Eccles were 99.9% sure that they did it at one time. They were not. At one time, they were 99.9% sure that it was John Mark Byers, and then now they're sure it's Hobbs.
Yeah.
And then he says it, and he talks about the DNA belonging to Hobbs, matching Hobbs and the laces of the thing that got them out.
Well,
and
he says it was certainty though. That's Hobbs's hair. It's never been proven.
Never been proven, and the rest of the DNA was never handed over, including that.
It's incredible. Yeah, so he's just repeating it. Yeah, he's repeating defense stuff, just like you said.
Not just Terry Hobbs. I wonder, and he also says something that just really enraged me. He said, I'm not sure if he was talking about the prosecutors or the investigators. They never read the autopsy. They never went to court. What about you, Fuhrman? You never read the court transcripts, and you never read the autopsy, because you wouldn't be talking about teeth prints.
Yeah, no, that was weird. Like the teeth print stuff that's been discredited, and then he like some of the injuries were because somebody was dragging the kids through the brush. And I think if I remember, he like accounted the damage to the kids' genitals, Byers' kids' genitals, I think was due to dragging through the brush. When
Dragging
there's
through
a
the brush, and also saying that John Mark Byers hit his kid on his fanny, and
right,
they were all just beat their kids. So that's why, because they were just such religious fanatic, hick, dumb Bible Belt people that they were all beating their kids. And it wasn't the West Memphis Three.
yeah,
And what about? I mean, what about all the rest of the evidence? He says no murder weapon. Can we talk about the
right,
Baldwin Lake knife?
yes. I mean, there's the lake knife. So what's going on with that? They found the sticks, right? Some of the kid. I mean, he admits that one of the kids died from having his like skull fractured, right? But then they also found all these weird walking sticks, and all three of them were known to walk around wearing staffs or staves or whatever. So it's a potential that those were some of the other things that were used in the crime.
Can
And I
I go
think that
back to
doesn't
the
it tell
satanic
you?
panic thing for just
Yeah,
one
let's go.
moment with Vicky Hutchinson? She says that she's going to be a mole and infiltrate herself and pretend that she's interested in the occult. And she says she goes with Damien Eccles and he takes her to, what's the word for the witches?
S bat.
Okay. But if he's not into the occult, or is that just a Wicca ceremony? So is that passable?
I think it's within that kind of witch thing. They call it an S bat. Yeah.
So it's passable. So is he into the occult or not into the occult? And how is Satanism so far? Can you explain Satanism and Wicca and the connection between the two?
Well, that's a long whole nother interview, but generally you can say Satanism, and then it has all these kind of subgroups. But Wicca is a subgroup that came out of two guys. I would say it was Alex Sanders and another guy who was actually an OTO member, Gardner, both guys from the UK, who kind of just built up this kind of new religion called the Wicca or Wise One, and that was really the foundation of what the Wiccan practices. And actually, yeah, it goes back through Crowley. Gardner admitted that he took some of Crowley's rituals and invented them, but yeah, so all that Wiccan. I think Eccles wanted when he was in jail? He wanted this one book, the Encyclopedia of Wicca or something like that. But so that's kind of what they imputed onto him, but they left out all the other elements of Satan, satanic groups, the OTO, AA, all kinds of stuff. So,
He
um,
says that he was prosecuted for his love and knowledge of Crowley.
right,
That's what
yes,
Damien Eccles says. So
well,
he's disagreeing with Mark Fuhrman there, right?
I mean,
Mark Fuhrman says it's
right,
mistaken, right? It's mistaken.
it's mistaken, right? But that's
Satanic
right,
panic.
right. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. He's agreeing with Eccles, but he's saying it in the context that it was misapplied. But Eccles is saying it's not misapplied. That's why I was
Right,
prosecuted.
right. Hmm.
Yeah, it's a disaster. That whole thing is a disaster. Wow. It's an embarrassment for Fox. It's an embarrassment for Fuhrman. It's really bad. And
It's.
he just
What do
kept
you
saying
think?
they found nothing. They found nothing. And it's almost like something that they repeated all the times when I was looking into the West Memphis Three, is people would repeat this axiom. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. It's not true. There's tons of evidence. It's not a great open and shut case, but there's tons of evidence they were involved. Sorry.
I don't think there's ever been no evidence on any trial transcripts that I've ever read.
Yeah.
You know the
Well,
amount of work it is to actually go to trial? Do you know how many cases don't go to trial because they don't feel the
it's a
evidence
huge
is
percentage. Yeah.
sufficient enough? How many people skate away with crimes, including murder?
No, it's very unusual.
So
Um,
it's just amazing. And he says, can we talk about the way he presents the Alfred plea is just classic.
yeah. Right. So, what does he? You tell me. He says something about the Alford, like you can. He kind of avoids saying it's a guilty plea, doesn't he?
He takes a sigh because he doesn't want to say it's a guilty plea. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to have to explain this inconvenient fact that they pled guilty. and that they're twice convicted triple child murderers. I'm going to have to explain this. So he says this like long, big sigh before he's like, the Alford plea, and he kind of screws up his face. The Alford plea is this plea where you admit that the case is overwhelming. He uses the word overwhelming amount of evidence, but you still maintain your innocence. And then he gives all the same PR talking points about the reason Arkansas doesn't want to admit, doesn't want to look for the real killers. They all sleep great at night knowing that their child murderers walking loose, never been found, and that these guys did these terrible long stretches in prison, one on death row for a crime they didn't admit, and that they also don't want to admit, Arkansas doesn't want to admit, that they falsely convicted criminals in their state. They don't want to admit that that's possible.
Gosh,
they're so proud.
So brazen.
William Ramsey, so proud.
It's incredible because you can easily get the plea agreement from August 2011 and read it, and just you have to sign on the line that is dotted that says the state has enough evidence to convict me of first-degree murder, and I am signing it here. And these guys had the best lawyers available, the best appellate attorneys, everything like that. There was not some kind of court-appointed attorney. They had the best they could buy.
They had 20 times OJ's money to buy every great attorney, every great appellate attorney, every great expert, and the best they could come up with is a guilty plea. That will tell you how rock solid that case, those two cases were. Not no evidence, because if there's no evidence, they would have been out. They wouldn't have to plead guilty. They would have been getting their exoneration money, doing the Innocence Project tours, all the other stuff that goes with it, getting an exoneration.
Yeah, and it's funny to see Fuhrman. I think he used the term sloppy, but his whole inquiry into the West Memphis Three is the definition of sloppy. Like, just slovenly, forgetting elements. It's bad. Like, I feel sorry I feel like embarrassed for Fuhrman. It's terrible.
What do you think? I mean, what was going on in my mind was, is this a D-? Does he get like a little point for just like you did in class for showing up? Or was it so bad that you have to give him an F because he's so factually inaccurate? That was what was going through my mind.
That's interesting. I have to say F because he went backwards in the understanding of the West Memphis Three and made Byers and Hobbs look guilty. Like, not even Eccles and Baldwin could do that. So he's actually confused. This is such an embarrassment.
Is this the biggest piece of turd ever dropped on the West Memphis Three case in history? That's my other question.
And then I think that their attempt at gravitas was Fuhrman writing in that book in his cursive. I think that was their attempt to kind of garner some type of legitimacy. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, don't you think it's terrible?
I give him a D- for keeping it brief, for brevity.
Oh, that's good. There you go.
For brevity.
You're much more generous than I am. That is
because it's not. I mean, do you think I really thought Bob Ruff did the worst job ever on this, but
I think he out roughed Bob Ruff because. I mean, you have a point, though. Like, Bob Ruff said 70 hours of nonsense and, could literally, like, cure insomnia with his recordings. But this, you're right, the briefness of Fuhrman, that's in the plus column for this whole West Memphis.
I give him a D-. You can give him an F. I give him a D- for this.
So, what bothers you is just the factual inaccuracies, like simple facts. You have to get all the facts right, and there's just guys that just aren't getting the facts right. They're just leaving out 500 pages of Exhibit 500 from his own defense, for his death penalty defense, and his psychological record and all that stuff. It's just like, whoa.
What's amazing is that I remember getting interested in this case when the West Memphis Three was totally denying that Eccles was interested in Crowley interested in the occult, and they would argue with you till they were blue in the face that he was a Buddhist and that William Ramsey was crazy and that he was a conspiracy theorist and he didn't know what he was talking about. Clearly, since he's gotten released from prison and has devoted his entire life to the occult, I would call that a vindication of the thesis of your book, the vindication of your research. And now, when it's brought up, it just doesn't matter. But the other thing that you used to talk about is how these points are repeated, and it's almost like a form of mind control. There was no evidence. There was no evidence. Right. Black T-shirts, heavy metal music.
Convicted for a crime they didn't commit. It's like almost every article or statement is, here's Damien Echols, convicted for a crime he didn't commit. So they have their little blurbs and their little slogans, much like any cult group does or political group, easily digestible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a mind control. I mean, Echols wrote that book, Mind Magic. I have yet to see it yet, but yeah, I mean, I think that from his side, I think he's engaged in manipulating people much more than they're willing to admit.
Isn't it amazing? I'm just amazed that Mark Fuhrman, that he's so proud of his work, that he just creates a total crap sandwich, and it's like, oh, this is the great. It's like someone who's terrible at cooking. Have you ever had someone cook for you who's really terrible but thinks they're great? And they're like, this is amazing. Isn't this incredible?
Yeah, it's so
Something
true.
like that.
That's a great analogy.
Do you think that he thought that he could just slap this together? Is it just too hard for people to believe that someone would have spoken up if they got it wrong? I mean, clearly we've all been speaking up, but we don't have the platforms that HBO does and other people do. I mean, is he just unaware of the other side of this, or does he just think it's just everybody agrees that this is the way it is?
Right, well, that's an excellent question. Those are great questions, because wouldn't you say like a fair, objective view would include pro and con? So just like, so these are the people who actually think guilty means guilty and things like that. Like, well, there's just so much left out. Like, these guys haven't done squat since they got out in 2011 to find the so-called guilty party. They haven't been burning with, righteous indignation and trying to find somebody else. They've just insinuated and repeated stuff that Fuhrman raped.
I thought it was very interesting, just this whole body language. And if I wouldn't encourage anyone to watch this, but out of curiosity, if they really want to watch this, this piece of work, really look at his body language when he starts to talk about the Alfred plea, and just really look at how uncomfortable he is when he has to present that to the audience. And that has to be I was very interested, because it looks like the one thing that bothered him was that they pled guilty. He knows it's a guilty plea. He's trying to sort of finesse it, but he knows it's a guilty plea.
Yeah, even as a ex-police officer, right? Like, it must be troubling for him. Like, they are still guilty. They still are under probation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, did we cover it all? I mean, that they never have to look for the murder. I've already said that. I think I covered everything in my notes.
Let me go back to my notes. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, he goes through the teeth thing. Mark Byers taking his teeth out. And then he says, I think his summation was the crime is what the state of Arkansas did. So he's blaming the state of Arkansas for the bogus prosecution. It's, I think I covered all the factual inaccuracies. If people want to see a test case of somebody not doing a good job, I would suggest you watch this. Because it's bad.
What? Okay,
you made a good point too. It's like, what else has he got wrong? Same thing with John Douglas, because if he gets the West Memphis 3, something like this bad, and this is his 5th season of the Fuhrman Diaries, so I'm afraid to go back and look through his other inquiries.
Right, Martha Moxley's his big claim. I mean, his big claim to fame and the way he redeemed himself after the OJ case, and now after watching this, it puts his whole theory into question. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know much about that case, but anyone who could present this and say it's his favorite thing, his favorite episode, makes me wonder about the thoroughness of his work.
Yeah, good statement. I'm just wondering who else is producing this or who else is working with Fuhrman, where he got his information.
I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What do you think? So I was looking into Sacco and Vanzetti.
Uh-huh.
I think I've explained to you why, and I found one book talking about their guilt from a guilty angle. It was a really old book, and I ordered it. And everything else is basically the myth is cemented that this was an anti-immigrant prosecution, they were innocent, blah 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 blah. So that myth is cemented in America now. What do you think the benefit is of the West Memphis 3 myth?
I think it's good. It's kind of like, I think it's very satisfying to the individual. I think they like the story of people getting justice. I think that's a very important element of the West Memphis 3 myth, is that, oh, these poor people endured this and came out the other side. And so I think that's very satisfying to the average. It's kind of like a daytime talk show victory story, I think. So I think that's important.
And also the individual, the loner, the outcast,
Right.
triumphing, right, against the man.
The man, yeah. So this big edifice was up against him, and he was misunderstood, and just like Wicca. But they never got into the dark stuff where he's threatening to kill people and stalking people. All the reports of him stalking this person at their house, like this girl at home who was terrified. You remember that story?
Yes.
The stomping on the dog. There's all kinds of statements in the case files that are chilling, dangerous.
Chills.
Yeah.
Putting, killing cats, maiming cats via firecracker. I mean, it just you could go on and on. These are not people you want to be around. These aren't people you want to have watch your wallet while you go to the bathroom. Even,
Not even. No, not even. Yeah, it's there's a lot of disturbing stuff in those case files. Really, really disturbing stuff that they just conveniently omit from the narrative. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is that myth is like, oh, he's just misunderstood, not very dark and very unwell. So, yeah, it's like a little turn on that. That's easily palatable for the public, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think these PR guys, Sowery and all this, have already kind of tested this with test groups and stuff like that to see what the best approach is to turn people? Don't you think that was probably done in this case? Is they got a pro to really figure out what story people wanted to hear?
Yeah, you're probably right. And Surrey is very interesting because he owns falseconfession.com. He owns a million, anything in the wrongful conviction movement. He has a website. It all goes back to Surrey Communications. And if you look at his Twitter, he's, making shout outs to the woman at 2020. I'm forgetting her name. She did the West Memphis 3.
Aaron, whatever. What's it?
Moriarty, yeah.
Moriarty.
Making shout outs. She's the one you go to if you want the innocence narrative. Making shout outs to her and what a great reporter. So he's got, I think people forget, and we were talking about yesterday, it's like, this is a whole crew and a whole cast of characters that goes, right. Experts that go in from one case out to another. Dr. Ofshe, the false confession expert. He's in the Marty Tancliffe case. He's in Jesse McKelly's case, although it wasn't presented to the jury. But still, it goes in and out.
Spitz was in this case.
They all know who to call. They have a Rolodex for who to call when they want to create their talking points of innocence, when they want to put together their PR presentation. They know who to call. They have their experts.
Yeah. No.
And it's a sad thing to see sort of experts who maybe started out well, hit hard times, and then really start getting pulled in by the money.
Yeah, because I think Werner Spitz was a legitimate expert in certain elements of forensics. I think that he has written a very important book, but to see him, shilling for the West Memphis 3 is unpleasant.
And the other thing is they also show Vicki Hutchinson's recantation. You don't know what happened to create these recantations. You don't know what's offered. You don't know what happened off camera. And I really encourage everyone, I'm like a broken record with this, but to look at the documentary Murder in the Park, just because you can see a visual illustration of some of the things that happen off camera to create these narratives. I know you
Very
can
good
read
point.
about them, but there's something about a visual of it that I think is really effective.
That's a great way to end it. Do you have anything else to add, Roberta?
No,
Anything else?
thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thanks.
the belly laughs. I really needed
That's,
it.
that's good. But again, everybody go check out Roberta Glass YouTube channel, True Crime Report. Go subscribe there. You're going to get some of the best true crime analysis out there, fact-based, objective, dispassionate, unbought too. So highly recommended. Roberta Glass, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Still there?
Yeah.
Oh, stuck.